The largest fentanyl seizure ever, coming as the border security funding negotiations grind onward. Let's get reaction from the White House tonight. Counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, joins us now. Kellyanne, great to have you with us.
Thank you, Shannon.
I mean, this thing is historic, the amount of drugs that we're talking about, and looking at that in the scope of the amount of overdoses that are happening here in this country every year. I mean, this bust is literally historic.
It is, and when people say there's no crisis at the border, it's manufactured, I would point them to what happened, what was released today and happened over last weekend. 250 pounds of fentanyl, Shannon, is enough to kill over 50 million Americans. It has a street value of about $102 million. So it's lucrative, but it's also lethal. And the CDC has reported, Centers for Disease Control has reported, that fentanyl is contributing the highest, most accelerated rate to our overdose deaths because just 2 milligrams, tiny little grains of fentanyl, is enough to kill you. It's being laced into street pills, laced into marijuana, heroin, cocaine, meth, and we know that it's being manufactured predominantly in China. Many people call it Chinese fentanyl at this point. President Xi made a commitment to President Trump in Buenos Aires in early December to schedule fentanyl, and so that it would be a controlled substance, meaning a crime punishable really at the highest levels in China. We know that he will make good on that commitment because we know that this is killing millions, well, thousands of Americans. But these millions of doses, I mean, people have to just stop and think about all the news that's never being covered. If this is one of the only programs tonight, or networks tonight, that is covering the fact that there was enough drugs to kill over 50 million Americans seized by our brave men and women at Border Patrol in Arizona, we have a problem. The last thing I want to mention about it is that this happened at a port of entry. And so I did notice today that many of the president's critics and our critics have said, "See,
the wall's not going to help.
We don't need a wall. The wall won't help." Excuse me. This is what we know about because it came in a port of entry through a produce truck. What about what we don't know about? What's coming over because we don't have a physical barrier, we don't have a wall.
So this all comes against the backdrop of the clock is ticking, potentially to a potential another shutdown on February 15th. The Hill had an interesting headline today. It said Republicans want Trump to keep out of border talks, and they quote Susan Collins, who talked to reporters. Senator Susan Collins says, "I think it would be more worthwhile and effective if the president would allow some space for these negotiations to occur and not be doing commentary at this point." I think she was referring to some of his tweets, but basically what he said is, if you're not talking about a wall or some kind of physical barrier, don't bring it to me because I'm not going to sign it. Is there a deal that can thread the needle of getting through the House, the Senate, and the president actually signing?
Let's hope so, because this is border security is national security. And you have had many Democrats making many joyful noises about walls, physical barriers, steel slab barriers. Look, you need a physical barrier that somebody can't climb over or crawl under or drive through or walk around. You've seen all the photos where that, in fact, has happened. And in addition, the other things that were on the table, DACA was on the table, TPS was on the table, these incredible investments, billions of dollars for detention beds and drones and technology and humanitarian needs, the immigration judges, let me repeat, the Border Patrol personnel increasing by almost 3,000. All of that was in the package that the president produced for all to see publicly several weeks ago, and to this moment we've never had a counteroffer. When Speaker Pelosi says no or $1 or doesn't respond at all, that is not a negotiation. It certainly isn't a compromise. But this president is willing to sign into law something that he feels will protect us.
Well, they've got a couple weeks left.
Yes.
In the meantime,
let's be hopeful.
Much was made of the hearing this week with the intelligence leaders on the Hill, and a lot of reports that they were not in sync with the president. He's tweeted today that they were mischaracterized, that they sat down. They are all on the same page when it comes to important things like North Korea and Iran and that kind of thing. Here's what Speaker Pelosi had to say about the president and the intelligence community.
One dismaying factor of it all is that the president just doesn't seem to have the attention span or the desire to hear what the intelligence community has been telling him. So for him to make the statement that he did yesterday, that's cause for concern.
Your response?
Well, I guess if she were the president, which of course she's not, she can run her intelligence briefings differently. But this president had his intelligence team in today. I happened to see them coming into the Oval as I was walking out for an entirely different meeting. There they were. And he had his full presidential daily briefing, tweeted out afterwards. And what he is saying that they mischaracterized because he thinks that he knows there is progress in North Korea. In other words, we're already ahead of the game. The president and Chairman Kim sat down and started talking about the demands. And And the demand by this president has never changed. So I would appreciate more a Speaker of the House from the opposing party who comes forward and says, here are the areas where we think we can support the president on intelligence and where we think that intelligence is still a nonpartisan issue that has bipartisan support. I really never hear her say that. She needs to get, I think, control of her words and occasionally her temper about this president and show Americans a speaker who's willing to come halfway with a president who has invited her to the White House any number of times and who has said, and I suspect will say in his State of the Union next Tuesday, that there are many areas that unify this nation where we can feel uplifted as Americans to come together and solve problems.
Well, to the point about the intel community and whether there is some daylight between them and the president, I want to play something from CIA Director Haspel. This is what she said about North Korea.
Have you seen any change in their behaviors?
I don't think I can point to any specific changes over the last couple of years.
Would the president disagree with that?
The president wants there to be changes in the behavior, and that's why he's willing to sit down with Chairman Kim
but
and
does he
talk
think there
about
have been
that.
Changes in the behavior?
Well, we know there haven't been in the last couple of years because President Trump says that President Obama told him that his biggest problem would be North Korea, one that we certainly inherited from that president and others. But this president he feels he's duty-bound to at least try to get that agreement of denuclearization. Things like this take time. These people have been at war for almost 70 years, and they've been, I guess, piling up their nuclear capability for some time, with this country largely looking in the other direction. So at least America sees a president who's willing to engage and wants him to make good. In the meantime, sanctions remain. This is a president who has not been shy about sanctioning individuals and nations and bad actors everywhere when he feels that it is appropriate. He's done that with any number of Russians. He's through the Treasury Department. He certainly has done that in North Korea and elsewhere. He's somebody who's taken us out of the ridiculous Iran nuclear deal. Israel and others have thanked him for that.
On the other issues of foreign policy, though, like Syria and the conversation about pulling out there and Afghanistan and other hotspots, there have been Republicans, key Senate voices who have stepped up to say they're not in agreement with the president about some of these big decisions.
Well, the president said he's not pulling out of Syria tomorrow or next month. He just doesn't believe in these endless wars. And this president has said that it will be done responsibly over time. Obviously, he is in consultation with his military leaders and others as to that best timetable. He has spoken about this, our vice president has spoken about this, Secretary Pompeo and others, our chief diplomat has spoken about this. But I think, though, when the president speaks, everybody always is looking for to pounce instead of to listen. But the president has made very clear in his Afghanistan speech, and I'll say September or so of 2017, he made clear to the world, this is not President Bush's policy in Afghanistan, is not President Obama's policy in Afghanistan. I'm not going to pull out tomorrow, but we're not going to stay there forever either, indefinitely. And so I think nobody should be surprised when President Donald Trump, who ran thusly successfully for president,
that's what he was going to do,
said, this is what I'm going to do. But he respects his intelligence advisors. They were there today for the briefing. They were all there. They all showed up.
Well, and the adventures continue. We will see. Kellyanne, thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Good to see you.